All My Heroes Are Cornballs, probably the best titled album of 2019, is JPEGMAFIA's third studio album, shortly following the release of 2018's Veteran. Like quite a lot of people, I was first introduced to Peggy's music through Veteran. After listening to that, I did go back and listen to Black Ben Carson. I did enjoy Veteran quite a bit more than Black Ben Carson, but it's still an album I go back to from time to time. Veteran was an album that truly sounded like nothing else in the entire rap world, to be honest, or in the whole music world. I think it probably has one of my favourite opening bars to an album ever. I think he starts it by saying, "I need all my bitches same colour as Drake, if they not, then they're getting rocked." Some of the track titles are entertaining in their own right. I'm not sure who else would be willing to title a track, "I cannot fucking wait until Morrissey dies." Now, after the release of Veteran and after he blew up on the internet, people started categorizing his music as experimental, industrial and punk rap. A lot of his music do fit that aesthetic, but it doesn't really paint an accurate picture of what Peggy's trying to go for. He's a hip-hop head at his core, but like a lot of people and like a lot of the way we listen to music now, we draw from different genres pretty much at random. We're not just boxed into certain categories, and his music reflects that. I think also categorizing him as just an industrial rapper doesn't reflect how surprisingly melodic a lot of his music was or is now. Veteran had moments of sometimes like it sounded like an R&B album, especially on songs like Panic Emoji. But now with All My Heroes Are Cornballs, he's expanded that melodic side to his music. Peggy was also sampling pretty much everything under the sun on Veteran. He sampled Travis Scott's Butterfly Effect on Williamsburg, and then on Rainbow Six he was sampling the best cry ever meme where the guy's like, "Rah!" Lyrically, the album is just as diverse. He touches on popular culture and internet culture, the music industry and politics, of course. His level of self-awareness is really refreshing to hear in the rap world, and I think that is what sets him apart from a lot of his contemporaries. This level of self-awareness was perfectly exemplified by the rollout of the new album. He invited the likes of James Blake, Denzel Curry, Injury Reserve, Slow Tie, just to name a few, to listen to snippets of his new album with the pretense that they would all be thoroughly disappointed by his new music. Whilst this is a genuinely hilarious idea, it perfectly reflects the theme and the concept of the album that Peggy's going for. The idea behind it that he's touched upon, especially in some of these interviews, is that however great you might be, however big you might be, however well received your music is, or however you're seen as this godlike figure in the music industry, at some point you will be looked back upon and some of your shit will be seen as corny. People look back at now, I don't know, New York rappers from like the late 90s and early 2000s with their baggy jeans and their Timbs and their New Era hats. Back then, that was the shit. But we look back on it now and we're like, that's corny as shit. And Peggy's aware of this. He realizes that people are fucking with my shit now, but in 2040, they're going to look back on Peggy and be like, that nigga was corny as hell. So I think having this level of self-awareness keeps his ego in check, and it also provides quite a lot of perspective for his present and his future as well. At times, this is an R&B album, at times it's a straight-up rap album, and at times it sounds like a full-on musical collage. Again, just like on Veteran, his sample library is eclectic. At one point he interpolates the old Wayne Wonder No Letting Go song on the outro of Prone, and I think on another track, I always forget which one, he starts singing TLC No Scrubs. The album is very stream of consciousness, spill out all my feelings-esque, and the sonic landscape reflects that lyrical landscape as well. Jesus Forgive Me, I'm a Thought, the album's opening song, is a beautiful mesh of Peggy's keyboard work, these brutal and harsh glass shattering sounds, and abrupt, brutal disruptions in the instrumental by other random noises. At one point he says, "Nigga come kill me, I'm verified." He's sarcastically calling out the ego boost that one gets when you reach a certain level of wealth and success. This is all the more relevant and potent to Peggy when you consider that after the release of Veteran, when he blew up on the internet, he became verified on Twitter. As melodic as the album can be, Peggy still is willing to call out toxic traits and contradictions in other people. Beta Male Strategies is essentially him calling out those who feel completely disinhibited by the technology that social media brings. Those who are willing to say bullshit on the internet, whether it's to him or just generally toxic shit, but they will never in a million years say it to someone's face. At one point in the song, he says, "Niggas be talking shit, I tell them pull up, bitch." Even though he's calling out a particular kind of person that he has quite a high level of disdain for, he still maintains a certain level of self-awareness. At one point in the song, he says, "Young Peggy, I'm a false prophet, bringing white folk this new religion." He's aware that there is I wouldn't call it a majority, but there's a large section of Peggy's fan base that are, they're the white nerds sitting behind their computer, looking down their noses at anyone who doesn't appreciate the genius of Peggy's music. And he's willing to call out that toxic trait, and he doesn't care whether those who are exhibiting these toxic traits are part of his own fan base or not. If it's there, he's going to call you out on it. Free the Frail is probably the most vulnerable and beautiful track on the album. At the start, there's these beautifully layered vocals singing, "Don't rely on the strength of my image." He's essentially saying that behind closed doors, he is just as vulnerable as everyone else is. The entire track is about his isolation from the rest of society and the rest of the music industry as well. He also flips the idea of the song Beta Male Strategies on this song. He says, "I'm not no alpha male, I'm Carly Rae, you Braden Walker." He recognizes that his success is completely dependent on his listeners and his audience and the reception to his music. So he's aware that he is at the mercy of his audience. He's the beta male now, and he's just operating in these narrow valleys where he can try and strive for success. In regards to his singing on this song, it's probably the best I've ever heard him sing. The hook sounds like a legitimate full-on R&B song. There are more traditional straight-up rap moments on the album, particularly the song PTSD. In that song, he says, "Don't know how that feels, young Peggy, no deal, yo, deal looks something like Brexit." And that's probably my favourite bar on the album. He's comparing Brexit, which is probably in my lifetime the worst decision my country has made, to the exploitative deals that rappers are put in by major labels. Sonically, the album is just as expansive and eclectic as his previous music. BBW is a short but sweet song, laced with these quite beautiful angelic vocal samples. The title track has Peggy once again singing over one of the more bare bones and sparse beats on the album. The song Rap Grow Old, No Child Left Behind at times sounds like this strange mesh of hip-hop, rock, and kind of mind-bending, mind-melting 1970s progressive rock that you would listen to while you're on LSD or some shit. And of course there are a couple of fully instrumental tracks on the album as well. The album closes with the song Pappy I Missed You. This is probably my favourite beat on the whole album, and the first verse is probably my favourite verse on the whole album as well. The bar where he says, "Big strap looking like a dildo," needs no further explanation. He also says, "Heard white folks like beer, young rich swan, I'm a seer." That's a standout to me, particularly because he's of course referencing the experimental rock band Swans and their album The Seer. And he's aware that their fan base is predominantly white, maybe predominantly beta males, and he's drawing some sort of parallel between what the white music consumer likes and his music. And Peggy's never one to mince his words either. At one point he says, redneck tears, what a beverage, dead cops on my songs, that's hilarious. This is a reference to his track, I just killed a cop, now I'm horny. In that song, he has sampled a fatal confrontation between a police officer and a man that he had pulled over. Peggy's response to this, or to the criticism he faced after this song came out, was to call out the NYPD, who wore t-shirts mocking the death of Eric Garner, who was a victim of police brutality. It's the moments where he meshes the absurd, his humor, and brutal facts about reality, where he is at his lyrical peak. It makes his music sound like the most brutal black comedy that you could ever think of. And I think this is a fitting way for Peggy to navigate his lyrics when you consider the social and political landscape that he is working in. All My Heroes Are Cornballs is an album that refuses to be categorized. I can't fit this into hip hop or rap or experimental, because there's certain connotations that come along with calling it experimental. You hear experimental hip hop, oh, he must be like Death Grips, or he must be like Clipping, or he must be like Injury Reserve, and so on and so on. And he's nothing like that. And I feel that's the reason why his sonic palette is so diverse, because he is reflecting the way that we listen to music. The core of the music I listen to is hip hop, but it branches out to many different things. It branches out into progressive rock, or some ambient shit, or some jazz, or whatever. And I feel that's not me trying to be like, oh, look how diverse my musical taste is. That's me recognizing the era that I've grown up in. I'm in my early 20s. We're in the streaming age now, and the way we consume music is different to people who've grown up in the 70s and the 80s. They had to buy CDs, they had to buy vinyl, and they would have to listen to that album all the way through. They wasn't the pick and mix style of music consumption, and I feel that is what Peggy is trying his best to reflect. And in my opinion, it's made for one of the most unique, captivating, and very best albums of 2019. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to let me know in the comments down below what album or artist you think I should talk about next. Make sure to like, subscribe, and dong the bell, and I will see you next time.